If you've existed and are somewhat of a weeaboo, you've probably heard of Touhou. Most likely not the game franchise, and instead the absurdly large fan base, and certainly its music. The original game series is an anime bullet hell. For those of you new to the genre, imagine Galaga on steroids. Players move through levels, collecting points, gunning down bosses, and dodging complex patterns. The first Touhou game, Touhou Highly Responsive to Prayers, plays nothing like that. Well, it plays like an AI tried to recreate the original games. Developed in 1995 and actually released in 1997 on the PC-98, this game was developed entirely by one man, Zun, who created Touhou as we know it. This game really does feel like it's a product of all the words I just said. Despite being called highly responsive to prayers, this game is godless. Touhou 1 has the player locked into 2 dimensions at the bottom of the screen, being only able to move left or right. 2 options are available to the player, a wave and bullets. Wave creates a small area above you and clears the bullets and knocks away the ball. If the wave is used while moving, remove the player will dash. The dash also shrinks the hitbox, but locks the player into movement. Bullets do not hurt enemy in this game, and instead only clear bullets or knock around the ball. In this game, Rimu is first to kick or shoot a giant ball into enemies for damage. However, this ball is a double-edged sword, since it also hits Rimu, forcing a player to have to manage both a ball and the player position around an enemy attack. This very quickly becomes a problem, and is one of the most unique areas of difficulty in the entire series. The player has to ensure the ball is in a position to be launched into a boss, while not taking hits from the enemy or the balls bounce back. Since each boss is different, the player will have to find the right strike zone to hit both the boss and dodge their attacks at the same time. We'll get more into bosses in a bit, but for now we have to deal with the game's other type of level. You see, this game is split into 2 segments. First, a block clear section, where Rimu has to clear blocks while being shot at. And then, the only thing people actually care about, which is the boss fights. The first segment, or anime Breakout, is where the player gets to build up a score, go for extra lives, and just experience the terrible physics in this game. These sections really don't serve a purpose, and just slow down what should be a fun boss rush. Here's some advice on playing through them. We can use bombs to skip through these block clear sections. Not only that, a mistake in the code means that bombs can count for block clear combos. This lets us drop bombs for a chance at extra lives. Hopefully you save up enough bombs to avoid the bad stages. It's worth skipping them just because of how obnoxious they are. Take a look at this small clip. Let's start by addressing the visuals. What if the player's sprite was red on white, and what if the background was also red and white? But what if the power balls were also red on white? But now, here's the funny part, here's the really funny part. The bullets are also white, so no one can tell what the fuck is happening. They used real-life reference photos from hell to make these backgrounds. The next most important thing to notice is the ball's inconsistent velocity. Every shot that hits the ball has a drastically different effect on its movement, because each shot 100% changes the velocity of the ball. If I had to visualize it, it would look something like this. That brick zone is something that happens when you hit the ball perfectly fucking vertical. It bricks the ball and stops all movement. This is not consistent, and it's why the tech is almost never used in actual, good runs of the game. This is not consistent and will mostly happen on accident. Here's a bit where the ball just gets infinitely stuck between 2 bouncers, going back and forth, pondering the great questions of life, like why we are here, why do we exist, is Touhou the reason God abandoned us? And just like that, the ball has slipped through the gaps between bouncers, despite being physically larger than the bouncers. Moving on, the boss fights are legitimately very fun, and such an experience to play through. There are 2 different routes to go through, with 3 different bosses on each. The Hell route is my personal favorite. It's slightly easier and has some fun options for juggling bosses. Here's where the gameplay actually gets somewhat close to classic Touhou. Bosses require you to do some impeccable dodging. Every boss has unique patterns, and most of them aren't bullshit. Of course, I think it's only worth it to play against these bosses on Lunatic difficulty, which lets you properly experience the problematic game design. The first thing to note about these bosses is their shrunken hitboxes. Take Kakuri, who will be bullied as she's the worst boss in the game. Her hitbox is roughly a square around her face. The other 90% of her sprite is just filler. The sprite work in this game is all over the place. You get Serial, who has an amazing multi-stage boss fight with changing backgrounds and color patterns. And you get Yugen Magen, who's composed of eyeballs, squiggles, and rage. Despite the questionable art, Yugen Magen's actually a great boss fight, as are most of them, even if you'll end up with some moments where the hurtbox gets pretty confusing. Graphically, due to the limitations of the system, Some of the moves get pretty confusing. For example, Sariel's exploding bullets really should be a different color from regular bullets. Some bosses have long startup times that can be annoying, but really nothing too out of the ordinary here for Touhou. Honestly, when you're still trying to learn the game, it gives you a bit of time to process what the fuck just happened. It's hard to put it into the words, but something is off about this game's overall feeling. Let me compare this game's feeling to the first Devil May Cry. Odd comparison, I know, but in Devil May Cry, there are a ton of amazing options available to the player that just don't connect immediately. However, while in Devil May Cry, subsequent runs of the game let a player really have fun with comboing out and crazy fun expression to already learned bosses, in Touhou, the player realizes the limitations of the moveset and will default to a few bullshit patterns, kinda defeating the entire point. Take the first patterns of the Kikuri boss fight on Lunatic. There are two ways to clear it. You can either sit in a spot around the center, not move and spam bullets until it clears, or you can slide around in the corner looping shots. It just feels lame, because the fun breakout options conflict with the need to dodge bullets, taking away from the game's unique options. Newer Touhou games solved this by letting the player move vertically, as well as having a button to slow down player movement, compensating for the harder difficulty with more options available to the player. There's also the issue of Rimu's kit having tons of jank. There's a spin she can do after dashing that's really useful when it works. However, it still has hitbox issues and does not come out consistently, and has too much of a moving commitment to justify its loose on Lunatic difficulty. Same with the double dash. There's a reason these options don't show up in high skill runs. The bullets themselves aren't even immune to jank. They fire as fast as the computer can register and process them, which ends up leaving a lot to either the emulator, or if you somehow played it on an original system, to how powerful your computer is. Bullets not having a hold down spam max speed option is just kind of frustrating, especially when the ball just goes through a line of your bullets. The biggest area of jank, however, comes from bombs. I've already mentioned the block clearing combos for extra lives, but there's more to it than that. If we bomb at the right time after kicking a ball, we can hit the boss multiple times. This is because the bomb knocks around the ball a bit and counts as a hit. Sometimes, however, bombs just won't damage bosses at all, making it very inconsistent to use reliably. So where does that leave the game overall? I think I would 100% recommend it. Maybe not entirely for the right reasons though. It's got an amazing pick-up and play arcade style. The game is extremely generous with its continue system, so you don't have to try hard through the game unless you want the good ending. You will be getting the bad ending a lot with Rimu blowing up. If you like classic Touhou gameplay, this ain't it though. Just play 6 again like a regular Touhou fan. If you want to try something new, and don't mind dealing with some absurd jank, this is an overall great game. I give it a mixed 6.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. If you want to check out some of my other game reviews, I'd recommend either my Ribbit King review, which is golden, or my Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist of the Roses review, which is popular. Thanks for today. I'll see you guys next time.